Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm actually recording this during a thunderstorm, but I do want to talk about Fatal Frame 2, Crimson Butterfly, the remake that just recently released a few weeks ago and stuff. Um, I want to get my initial impressions out or my opinions about it and everything, so I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet as much as possible because my main focus is actually going to be the gameplay portion of it. I will talk about the graphics and the story quite a bit too, but not as much. But I just want to get that out there and stuff. See what what you guys think, and maybe if you guys are still on the fence about it, maybe you guys might purchase it later on down the road when it's on sale, or buy it now. Okay, to support the developers and stuff. So, but with that being said, though, Fatal Frame 2 Crimson Butterfly, the original, when it released, was my first game in the series. I did not play the first one at all because I didn't know about it. I just saw this box cover that's right behind me, and I'm like, okay, this might be a spooky game. I'm gonna pick it up. I bought it. My parents bought it for me, and I played it, and I have really fond memories of it. The story itself was, I mean, when you originally played it, was a gut punch. When you got the first ending and stuff, because I think the original only had two endings. I think. I know they made an Xbox version, and of course they made another remake later on down the road for the Wii and stuff like that. But so on and so forth. With that being said, though, from there I did buy later on Fatal Frame 3, The Tormented, completed that one, and after that, of course, Fatal Frame 4 became a Japanese exclusive, and along with, actually not along with, Fatal Frame 5, The Maiden in Blackwater, came out for the Wii U. I didn't buy that version because the Wii U wasn't really, up to par, I think, and I really didn't buy a lot of Wii U games, so I kind of neglected that. But besides that, though, I did re-buy it and played it on PlayStation 5, and I beat that one. So the only two I haven't beat is 4 and the first one. So, and I kind of neglect not playing fully the first one because it kind of plays into Fatal Frame 3 a little bit. So, but it's gonna be a completely different topic on its own time and stuff. So, with that being said, I want to talk about with the remake actually more than anything else. All right. So, and I'm going to get the easiest stuff out of the way, and the most easiest stuff to talk about is the story and the graphics. As far as the story, it's a one to one. Okay, it's not. There's no changes whatsoever, besides maybe adding some more context and some more backstory to a lot of different characters in the game and stuff. So, I do like how they did that, and that's one thing that I like about the Fatal Frame series, is that you have your characters, well developed characters that progress throughout the story, but then you have a world around it. But the world around it is actually very well built and, drives the characters for it as well. There are certain games that don't do that, especially in horror, um, especially later ones down the road, but like they built that world around it, Unlike, like, let's say, Silent Hill, for example. Now I'm not talking about Silent Hill Elf. That's gonna be a completely different topic on its own. But with Silent Hill in general, you got the world of Silent Hill, but then you got each character going through their own personal issues besides Harry Mason and stuff. But with that being said, you have the character, and then you have the world around that character, and that's what gets them through that. Um, with that being said, though, the same thing similar to Resident Evil. Now maybe the original Resident Evils didn't really do well that much. Like maybe, I shouldn't say that, because the only one I don't think really did well was 6 in its story, because it was a little bit all over the place. But they created the characters and they mold the world around that characters. And I'm specifically saying the original three. Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3. Because you got even Zero, I would say too. But you got the Stars team going to the mansion. It's a mystery, and you start uncovering the mysteries. When you start creating the world lore around the characters and start building that world lore with the characters, um, it creates an experience. Same thing with, like, let's say Dead Space. You don't know much going into Dead Space in the very beginning, but when you start reading the logs and exploring and stuff. I mean, and then you go through Isis Clark, especially with the remake. You go through Isis Clark's trauma, trying to find his girlfriend and stuff like, or wife, I think it was. So, and it creates a world where you want to continue on with. Okay, and there's some horror games that don't drive that. Like if you have a good character, and there's actually a lot of games like that. It's not just say specifically horror games, but if you have a good character but a very dull world, you do not want to learn about that world. And if you have a very creative and great world and with great lore behind it, but you have a very boring character, then you don't really want to engage with that character. There's quite a few games like that, especially nowadays, sadly. Okay. So when you're creating these worlds, you really got to when without especially horror games specifically. That's why I love the genre so much because they create this unique world around a character, and the character doesn't know nothing until they finally get more into it. So, but I know I got a little bit off a tangent there. I just want to speak my piece on that one, but it is a 1-to-1. So there's no issues with the story. They even add, to me, it feels like they added more lore to the story, making it even better. So I really enjoyed it so much that, like, even though the original is still there, I enjoy the story a lot more, and I can appreciate the story a lot more. So, but the next thing is gonna be the graphics. Graphics, of course, it's compared to PS2. It's been a while. I didn't play the Wii because the Wii version of, so you got multiple versions of Fatal Frame 2, with the PS2 and Xbox. Okay, and then you got the Wii version, which is a remake of Fatal Frame 2, which actually introduced the over-the-shoulder camera because of the the Wii nunchuck motions and stuff like that. So, but then here they adopted, of course, the over the shoulder, which is to me it gives you a little bit more freedom and control. Now, when at first I wasn't liking the third person over the shoulder with a lot of these horror games coming out, like Silent Hill, Resident Evil 2, but you got to appreciate it a little bit more because you're able to see the world in a different view. You're able to see the world on the ground floor instead of just with fixed camera angles. So, but with that being said, though, the graphics, they're pretty. Let's say that they're pretty. They actually drive the world itself. A lot of scenery is really great looking. Like I was in awe. Okay, like that one section that I played when you went to Kurosawa House, the Kurosawa House. Sorry, and it was the rain falling, and it was the staircase going up. That was very pretty. In the original, that wasn't like that. Yeah, I can understand the tension and the fear behind the original camera angles, and it does. And I will say the older shoulder does lose a lot of that fear and tension sometimes, though. But that's where the gameplay kind of makes up for that a little bit. So yes, a lot of us probably are a lot older now. When this remake released, and those that actually played the original, yes, we were probably fighting a lot more because where it's fixed camera angles, you're battling ghosts, you're hearing different things, and that's another thing is the audio is phenomenal because there's times where I thought things were inside my own house, you know. So and that was even on stream. Like I was hearing things, but it was in game. So having that great audio, that great 3D audio, the great atmosphere, and the graphical aesthetics really drive home that fear factor into it. Okay, the gameplay brings the tension. Okay, but overall, compared to the OG, the original, like again, they're both the same game. At the end of the day, they're both the same game. They both just play differently. and I still enjoy them both. That doesn't mean that I don't say that this one's inferior. No, sometimes I will want to go back to the original and play the original. So, but the next one I'm gonna be talking about is the gameplay. Um, and it does feel like I'm rambling on because I have no script for this. I don't like to script any of my stuff, so I will say that. The next thing, though, will be the gameplay. And I know this is a little bit controversial to a certain degree, especially reading some of the stuff on the forums or the Steam page and all that other good stuff. Um, I enjoy the gameplay a lot. It still drives the same tension that the original had, okay? Yeah, the combat was a little bit more slower. This one's a lot more fast paced, okay? Um, when the first game originally released, there was a issue with the agitated ghost or race, which annoyed me. Okay, when they patched it, and you will see that like if you go to my streams and go see that one on the second one, I point that out. Like, there's why is there not many ghosts? Okay, they did patch it, so that's a good thing, but at the same time, it's also a bad thing because they kind of weakened a lot of the ghosts, and they also weakened the agitated ghosts a little bit too. Some agitated ghosts weren't like that, but I think they could balance it out with patches. Okay, and that makes me wonder. Let's say that this wasn't a world with the internet. Well, back in the day, it still had internet, but let's say if it was the original one that had wraiths in it, agitated wraiths, and they were aggressive as heck. you know, we would not have gotten a fix. Maybe the Xbox version would have gotten a fix because I know that one released a little bit later, or the Wii version. That probably would have got fixed. But the original one wouldn't have gotten fixed. We would have to deal with it. And that probably might have turned off a lot of people. Because it happened with this one. So with the agitated raves, they with patches, I think they could easily fix the Wraith issue to be balanced. Because I played on normal, I didn't play the hard difficulty mode at all yet. So I will eventually, but not now. But I do want to say that the agitated ghost can be balanced out a little bit better for normal people for the normal mode. I'm hearing things now. No, I'm here. I think one of my cats knocked down something. If you heard that in the background. But with that being said, the agitated ghosts, though, they are they need to be balanced a lot better for normal mode people because they're a little bit too easy now. Back when I first played it, again going back to that when I first played it, yeah, it got annoying after a while because every other ghost, maybe every 3 or 2 ghosts, even the normal ghost, got agitated, and I'm like, I'm wasting all my film now. But again, too, later on when you start battling more and more, you will eventually not have enough film. So you will start eventually running out of film. So, but besides the agitated ghost issue, what do you call it? The filters that they're almost the same. They're almost the same, like identical. They had the same like bindings, the binding filter and the other filters and stuff like that. What do you call it? The way to spot the ghosts now are actually a lot easier compared to the original one. Because the original one, it would be like on the very bottom corner of the screen, and it'll tell you that there's a ghost that you can capture. But if it's red, then there's an enemy ghost. Here, it's more of a like aura on your screen, so it makes it easier to detect. For me, it's easier to detect because sometimes I'm not looking at my inventory screen or the bottom right hand on my screen. So, but it's to their own. Next is the map is actually on one of the side of the screen. It's the upper. If you're facing the things upper right hand corner, the map is actually fully displayable on that upper right hand corner, which is a nice addition because in the original you had to go back to the menu and look at it each and every single time. So Of course, with it being 3D, you're able to spot things a lot easier. You don't have to go around and start clicking random things to get things, to get the objects you need, especially key items and stuff like that. So, what else is there? I'm trying to think. And then, of course, it still has the what do we call it, the fatal frame that you need to, the closer the ghost gets, the more damage they take and stuff. They still have that feature and stuff. It's actually, to me, it's actually a lot easier compared to the original. So the original one, there was a little bit more of a timing you had to do, but I think there's more combat features in this one compared to the original one, which gives it a little bit more depth, not too much. Some people say it's easier compared to the original one. It can be. I mean, I don't know yet until I play the hard mode one. Then maybe that's what will test the waters in terms of that. So, but overall, the overall package though, for me, you know, I enjoyed it. Even I since I even played the original, I enjoyed the package. With the day and age of like Silent Hill 2 being remade, or Resident Evil 2 being remade, Dead Space being remade, you know, they made evolutions, especially like Silent Hill 2 and Resident Evil 2 remake. They made evolutions into this new over-the-shoulder camera with a different perspective and a different storytelling on those two. You know, um, Dead Space in general, when they made their remake, you know, of course, graphically is great. Story wise, it's the same, just like this one. It's just there's newer gameplay mechanics along with improvements to the gameplay. So, and that's how I treat this one as similar to the Dead Space remake. It's an improvement, you know. Like I said, I'm not counting the original as like a bad game. You can still go back and play it. It's still a playable game. It's still a very fun game. It does have a more tense, spookier atmosphere, with the graphics, the gameplay, and all that stuff, and the sound. But, this one evolution makes it an evolution for everyone almost, to get into these type of games, and to get the name out there. Maybe this is your first Fatal Frame game, and you're like, wow, that wasn't bad. Maybe I want to go and look more into the original, or go to the other games and check them out. And the problem with that though is these horror games are expensive. And having like a remake or a what call it. I know I'm a little diving off a little bit tangent here, but having a remake and gives people the opportunity and experience that they could have experienced it back in the day, maybe, because these games nowadays are getting the retro games are getting more expensive. Silent Hill 2 original PS2 is like 100 plus. This game here is like 80 plus. You know, Resident Evil 2 on PlayStation 1 it's like 100 plus. So these games are a lot more accessible. Yeah, they're changing things to a slight degree with some of these, but some of them they're just doing one to one. Like Dead Space and Fatal Frame 2. So it's good that we're getting these games back. They're remaking them, reimagining them a little bit, but also giving us more. I know there's like people complaining about, the gameplay or censorship or any other, BS and stuff like that. But the thing is, though, we gotta appreciate not only the original game, but we gotta appreciate these newer games as well, because they literally took a one to one. To some, those issues might be not be a one to one, okay, but at the end of the day, we should just appreciate that this game got a comeback, and it's a comeback that's very appreciated, and a comeback that hopefully they make another new one or start remastering the other ones. So with that being said, though, if you were still on the fence about it, I would say go buy it. Okay, it's actually very cheap. It's not like a full price $70 game nowadays. It's $50. It's $49.99, which is priced wonderfully with not only the what you call it, not only for a say maybe a 12-hour campaign or a 12-hour story mode, but also multiple endings, different difficulty modes, unlockables, and all that good stuff. There's a bunch of stuff you can get in that game, so it's well worth the $50. I rather right now for me, for anyone out there that's watching this video, this $50, it's better right now to play Fatal Frame 2 Crimson Butterfly than paying maybe $90 to buy the original. So if you want the physical version, I know there's other means. So with that being said, though, if you did like this video, like, comment, and subscribe. You know, if you haven't any note, if you have not got any notifications, if you can, please do so, because I will do a lot more live streams coming up pretty soon about more horror games. So, and with that being said, you guys have a wonderful night, and I'll see y'all next time.
Mayu? The lost village.